Friday when we left, we got an announcement that a ferry had broken down and that the government was advised that week to replace the Cook Strait ferries with new, smaller boats. To which I on Twitter responded by going, bah, ha, 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 ha. Is it too early for a we told you so? To which someone, obviously the memes went crazy over the weekend, and this was kind of my favourite one. For those of you in the audio podcast, it's a picture of the bottom of the North Island and the top of the South Island and a ferry going into the water like Titanic. And Nicola Willis saying, thank goodness we saved that $3 billion on the new ferries because we're going to need that $4 billion to fix this fecking big pothole, which is quite funny. I quite like that one. It's kind of hilarious, actually. And yes, there are some differences between what they've been advised and what was going to be purchased. And yes, what was going to be purchased wouldn't have been here till 2026. But we told you so. We said there will be an incident, and I was playing uber pessimist, actually. I think I said, who knows what it'll be? It'll be a breakdown, or at worst case, it could be a death. Something goes wrong, and you will have to lump it. And today, the more I hear interviews today about the Inter Island, things like, aren't we so lucky it broke down or ran aground in an actual harbour in the Sound? We have no tugboats that can do anything in the actual strait. Both the tugboats in Wellington and the tugs that are in Picton area, they're only in harbour tugs. So this ferry, although when people have been saying that, aren't we lucky it didn't happen in the middle of the strait? I'm like, well, how are you going to run aground in the middle of the strait? Let's just be fair. But let's just point to the failing infrastructure that is the ferries. How to have if they have a problem in the middle of the strait, there's actually nothing there that can help them. Chewie, this is the problem. And I don't quite know all the numbers that are being bandied about now and all the kind of political, yeah, we can do this, we'll get some new ones, and how much they're going to spend. We'll get into that over the next few minutes. Let's just start with TVNZ tonight and their coverage of the actual situation. And then there's a tag on at the end of about 90 seconds with them talking about how National is responding to this. And what National is doing is kind of going, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, we're on top of this. It's no problems at all. And you kind of go, really? Are you? Let's have a look.
The grounding of the Aratere has once again ignited calls for an ocean-capable tugboat in Cook Strait. The Picton Harbour tugs played a key role refloating the ferry. Many say it's lucky an incident didn't happen in the open ocean. Here's Jessica Roden, who covered the story throughout the weekend.
A Monday morning clean-up after a long weekend.
It takes a lot of manpower, and as people are tired from the weekend's activity, we're just going to slowly bring the gear in.
Packing away equipment that was fortunately not needed.
A lot of our oil spill equipment is stored in here, so at the back you can see some of the land sea booms that were deployed.
Teams in Picton today debriefing after working around the clock from the moment the Aratere ran aground.
I have had some sleep.
We've got to ask the question as well. I'm sure it'll come out in the investigation. Just going back, oh gosh, that went along. Oh gosh, what have I done? How the heck did it run aground like that? I mean, they're talking about it running aground. There we go. There's the image I was looking for. Running aground. I mean, that looks like it's not just run aground, but lost complete control and drifted into, like, that's not the route that he's driving, he or she, whoever the captain is there, to be pushed into the wall like that. I'm assuming they either lost power and drifted in or something happened. So this could have happened. Go tell.
So a couple of weeks ago, they were upgrading their steering gear, and it looks like the steering has failed at this point. So actually,
the running aground means nothing. Actually, it's the failed steering, and that could have happened in the middle of the strait. So this is what we're dealing with: a not fit for purpose infrastructure that is going to continue to break down and be a hazard to the people using it. But
well, this is the second incident in the last, what is it? Is it 8 months? We had a different ferry lose power in the strait completely, and the Aratere had a problem with the propeller. I think less than 12 months ago. So, you know, we are rolling the dice each time.
And just remember, as long as we get a nice secondhand Corolla, that's all we need to get. which don't exist.
I have had some sleep. We got the regional harbour master from Canterbury to come up. So we've had a team of 41 people from multiple agencies coming in.
The vessel now safely docked, but it could have been much worse. It could have happened further into the journey.
Had this happened out in Cook Strait in open waters, these wouldn't have been the tugs that we needed. We would have needed an open sea rescue tug.
There are 2 tugs in Picton and they played a big role this weekend.
It's like any other port in New Zealand, our expertise is in berthing and unberthing ships, so our tugs are harbour tugs.
So are Wellingtons, and they're not designed for the open ocean.
They have capability to respond in an emergency.
It is fascinating. I guess the reality is it would be good to have tugs that can work out in the ocean as well, but it is interesting that they're going to, we need a tug to go into the ocean when it breaks down, rather than let's get something new that's not likely to break down. So I mean, I get it, because new things can break down. People who have bought new cars, in fact, we were talking on Friday night about people who bought new cars and within 100 kilometres of buying them, they're broken. It can happen, but also getting a more reliable new Corolla, Nicola, might also be a solution, rather than trying to find a way to mitigate an ailing, broken infrastructure as well.
But they've got limited capability.
Last year, the Kaitaki lost power in the Cook Strait with 800 people on board and was just minutes from a major disaster. A few months later, a container ship got into trouble off fuel spit, an ocean-capable tug from Taranaki eventually towing it back to Wellington. Last month, the government put aside $600,000 for
I can't go back because it'll,
for an open
it's a live show, but yeah, significant, eh?
One News understands the key issues are who would pay for it and how it would be staffed.
Isn't that the key problem for this national government? Remember, this is the role of the right. When they're in opposition, they say government doesn't work. Government's not responsible enough to provide services to the public. Then they get into government and they pass legislations, or they cancel purchases that cause that goods or service to fail. Then they sit back and they go, yep, see, we always told you it wasn't going to work. Privatization is the answer. Who will pay for it? How will it be staffed? It's an interesting question, Chewie. Yeah. Very interesting question.
While it's hoped it would be really needed, a crew would need to be available at a moment's notice to respond to an unfolding event.
The place and the location of this incident, we're very fortunate that it was close, so we could put tugs on scene really quickly.
A lucky break, keeping the ferry service afloat for now. Jessica Roden, One News.
And they go straight into the Prime Minister's comments as well, so we'll stick with it.
Operating within 5 years. Christopher Luxon says reports suggest the current inter-islander ferries will reach the end of their useful life before the end of the decade. He says they'll need to be replaced by then at the latest.
Different analysis and reports I've seen suggest 2029, but having said that, we'd like to push as fast as we can to get a good, viable...
How's 2026, Christopher? We could have had some by 2026. Would that be as fast as we can?
Solution in place.
And Luxon says the weekend's incident hasn't made him regret cancelling a deal which would have delivered 2 new ferries in 2026. He says a cost blowout meant the deal didn't stack up.
So there's the basic story. Go, Chewie. Go.
This is the thing that's fucking me off. Every time the media talks about the iRex ferries, they talk about this massive cost blowout.
Yeah.
They are telling half the story. The ferries prices were locked in. They were negotiated. They were 40% cheaper than they would be now. The cost blowout was on building the port facilities, more resilient port facilities, more resilient against earthquakes. Picton and Wellington, the thing that joins them together, apart from the ferry route, is the fault line they fucking sit on.
Yeah.
This isn't reckless, frivolous spending. This is critical national infrastructure that handles billions of dollars of freight every year. And we end up in this small-minded place where the country never grows. We can never do things ourselves, and we mustn't ever have anything new. This secondhand Corolla fucking chat of like, let's treat this country like a poor family.
Yeah.
Deciding that they might need to upgrade a car is just foolish. I want a government that sees the country that we could be and do the things that we are capable of. And this is so predictable. I woke up to stories today, you know, again, maybe the solution is to privatize because Kiwi Rail clearly can't handle their shit. Maybe trying to service a 25-year-old ferry nearing the end of its life is more difficult and more expensive the older it gets. It's our only rail-enabled ferry. It's laughable that we're going down this. These guys are being economic vandals and they should be lashed by this. News came out today that it wasn't the case that no work had been done on the ferries. Hyundai were putting together engine components and spray painting steel plates for the hull. Now, we can't go cap in hand back to Hyundai and go, actually, we made a mistake. We paid hundreds of millions of dollars to cancel that contract, and we get nothing because it's too expensive. But we've spent $1 million so far in consultation fees to work out whether we can do a 4-kilometre long 4-lane tunnel under Wellington, which everybody agrees is a laughable pie-in-the-sky boondoggle. So the party of money and the party of making sure taxpayer dollars are used most effectively have spunked all this money up the wall for tax cuts for landlords. And then talking about how important roads are, even though that plan ballooned out by billions of dollars. But suddenly designing a ferry for our conditions that'll last decades and handle our increased population and handle rail freight without having to bring the train in, take the stuff off the train, put the stuff on the ferry, take it to Wellington, take it out of the train, truck it to where the train is. You know, it's why are these guys still there? It's clown shoes behavior.
So let's just pick up on what you've just said there, because whilst people are kind of going, well, it's going to be the same because they're just going to be smaller ferries. This is from the weekend, like this is Saturday or Sunday. The government's independent advisory group has recommended brand new Cook Strait ferries similar in size to the current fleet, One News understands. Last week, ministers received a report from the group in which it's understood options were laid out for the specifications of the new ferries and when they could arrive. The group has recommended that the ferries be smaller than the proposed iRex ferries and not rail enabled, although rail would still be able to be shunted on the vessels as often happens now. It's understood, funnily enough, Chewie, you reliable second-hand Corolla, well, it's understood second-hand ships were not an option on the table. But ministers were said to be considering whether Kiwi Rail would buy the ferries, here's the warning people, or a different entity would handle the purchase. Now, Chewie, what you just said as well, right, about it was all costed out. So this is what's going to happen, whānau. I almost guarantee it. I bet Chewie's life on it. Is that imagine you were in a contract through COVID to get a 3-bedroom house built, right? Signed, sealed, delivered, was done. You were done. It was going to cost you $1 million. And of course, jib went through the roof. Prices went through the roof through COVID. Doesn't matter. You've got a contract at the end of COVID when they finished it. Let's say it's getting finished for Christmas. It's going to cost you $1 million. If you try and build the same house today, it's going to cost you $1.5 million. So actually, you can either spend more to build the same house today, or you can get a lesser product, let's say a 2-bedroom house, or on a smaller set or a smaller footprint for the same money. That's what's going to happen with the ferries. The ferries are either going to be smaller and not service us as well because they won't be rail enabled for the same money, or they're going to cost more. That's what's going to happen. We said that's what was going to happen, and it's what's going to happen. The other thing, Chewie, that I wanted to mention, which I don't quite understand, right? This is from the press over the weekend as well. Now, I just highlighted the word billion because it's a fun word to highlight. Part of this article called New Zealand to the back of the queue for new Cook Strait ferries. From having them built for us to the back of the queue. The government in December cancelled an order for 2 new ferries, which would have been getting built now due to a $2 billion budget blowout, right? That's what they said. Now, further on in this article, and I don't understand this, it says this. Over the weekend, Transport Minister Simeon Brown announced that the government has ensured funding is available to purchase new ships. Oh, that's good. I wonder how much they've got. While Willis said that there was a $7.5 billion multi-year capital allowance that the new ferry funding would come from. So if there's a $7.5 billion multi-year capital allowance, what are you going to do now? Spend $1.8 billion on a lesser product because you wouldn't spend $2 billion on the Ferrari. So here we go. This is what's going to now happen, Nicola, you second-hand Ferrari. You're going to fucking buy a second-hand Ferrari. Well, let's be honest. You're going to buy you're going to buy a new Corolla, not a second-hand Corolla, a new Corolla, right? But you're going to pay as much for it as someone who would have bought a Ferrari. That's what's going to happen. You're going to pay Ferrari prices for a Corolla product. That's what's happening. Dumb shits.
This whole thing reeks of just going after a project because Labor has done it. Like, by all accounts, Labor did absolutely everything correctly with tendering out these ferries. They investigated what they needed. They looked at outside issues like lowering our carbon emissions. You know, a big thing about these ferries is that they were diesel electric. They had a whole bunch of batteries that could be charged and while they're at port and charged by diesel generators, and you could expand the battery packs at a later date to make it even more electric. You know, they did all of these things that all had benefits to our carbon obligations as well. They negotiated a great deal from Hyundai, one of the top shipyards in the world. And it was long-term thinking. And this just seems to be a thing that we will get a left government and we get long-term multi-generational thinking, and then we get national and it's cut. Any project that Labor had their fingerprints on, whether it was good or bad or middling, cut.
Yeah.
These guys wanted to tell a story about a poorly managed project by Labor with a massive cost blowout. And at no point have they acknowledged that there were two parts to this. And the other part of it is it's infrastructure, critical infrastructure in quake-prone places. It would have lasted us generations.
Yeah.
And we've chucked the baby out of with the bathwater. And as you said, we're going to be paying close to the same amount for less capable things. And if you're a ship maker and the New Zealand government comes to you and says, hey, look, we need to buy some ships, and you can go, well, I heard what you did to Hyundai, so who knows whether this is going to go through. So we're not going to give you a good deal because we don't trust you. Like, I would love to be in the delegation that turned up at Hyundai and go, actually, mate, we've changed our minds. We'd like to get those ships. Thanks. And Hyundai goes, get fucked. We're busy. Economic vandals. Absolute clown shoes.
Okay. So I've just written it down to get this right. This is the National Party, branding for 2026. Spend the same money today for a Corolla that would have purchased a brand new Ferrari 6 months ago. Vote National 2026.
And I've just realized that I haven't mentioned at all that this plays into the Tory playbook of take a state-owned institution, run it into the wall, point at them and go ineffective, corrupt, incompetent. The only solution, because we've only got 3 years before the bottoms of these ships start falling out, the only option that we've got is private enterprise.
Yep.
And then you're going to be looking at an overseas company that somebody's a shareholder and swoop in and save the day, look really good for a couple of years, and then start really extracting profit
Yeah.
And if we're talking about freight between countries, one day there'll be countries, between islands, then you're looking at it affecting prices. And then we'll have to look back and go, what fucking shower of idiots caused this easily foreseeable situation? And it's going to be old man Chewie and old man Pat sitting on our porches, pointing at you, go, we fucking told you so.
Fucking told you, sons.